Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. Of course, first and foremost, I'm going to start off a new series of movie reviews to catch up for the newest release, the fifth film of the franchise, coming out in March, and I want to catch up in the meantime for that. I hate for a lot of the people who have been watching the channel who have come from the other Night of the Living Dude channels that I'm still trying to figure out something to do with those. Because I reviewed these movies already on those other channels, because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with those channels. But I did it already on those channels for this new movie coming out, and I need to do it for this channel, because this is a horror comedy series most of the time, and I think it's worth addressing for this channel. So I'm going to re-review them here. I hope you stick around. This is for the Ghostbusters franchise. I'm going to start off with the 1984 original Ghostbusters in this 2-pack. I love this green slime looking thing, dude. How cool is this? Anyway, both films are in here with a booklet as well. Now, mind you, I have a lot to say about this movie. Ghostbusters, I never grew up with it. I saw it a couple of times. I saw Ghostbusters 2 like once or twice when I was a kid as well. And I've never been a hardcore Ghostbusters fan. It's a very dry humor horror comedy that can be scary, and for kids like me at the time, it was really, really creepy. Then the cartoons came out that kind of watered the movie and the series down into being more of like a kid-friendly property, and Ghostbusters 2, I think, kind of proves that. I think it's why a lot of adults don't like Ghostbusters 2 as much, at least back when it came out. But Ghostbusters 1, the 1984 original, it's a well-made film, and it's a well-written film for what it is, and every 2 seconds they're dropping a joke, and a lot of them can miss, but most of them I think do really land. And again, I don't really consider myself a fan of this movie. It's just, I like the film, I appreciate it, I think it's well-made. I don't mean to approach this on tiptoes, but I do want to say that I'm not a hardcore dedicated fan of Ghostbusters. Maybe I would like the cartoons more. I would really like to try those out at some point, like the real Ghostbusters. But anyway, so with this film, this is a horror comedy. It is scary, like I said. It has creepy-ass moments in it. It has practical effects to back that up. And it's basically about 3 men who eventually become 4 men and their secretary who start a company called Ghostbusters. And that would be Dan Aykroyd. He plays Ray. Then you have Harold Ramis. And then you have Mr. Bill Murray, who I love deeply. I love and appreciate all 3 of these men and different things that they've done over the years. I find all 3 of them very charming. This film was directed by Ivan Reitman, and it's actually co-written by Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd. A lot of people don't realize this was their baby. They made this film not only for themselves, but for the world, and it's a great concept. I love it. Basically, these guys go off to start a company called Ghostbusters when a lot of paranormal activity that they've been investigating kind of in their free time as a hobby. They make it into their own job in New York City because some new hauntings are starting to happen. One person being heavily affected by that is Sigourney Weaver, who Bill Murray begins to have a thing for once he talks to her. And she comes running to the Ghostbusters once they've started their company to try to get their help when she sees a giant evil hellscape inside of her refrigerator, which is hilarious to me. One of her neighbors in her New York City apartment is Rick Moranis, and I love Rick Moranis from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which I've never seen all the way through. Spaceballs, he plays Dark Helmet. I love Rick Moranis. He's my favorite part of this entire film, as much as I'm a big Bill Murray fan. I love that man. He makes this movie for me. He makes me laugh so much watching this, just like Bill Murray does. Bill Murray, to me, despite not being a writer of this movie, is still, to me, the guy that steals the scene every time he's in this film, along with Rick Moranis. But anyway, there's a lot of haunting ghost activity happening inside of New York City, and people are thinking it's weird. Everybody all of a sudden begins to call the Ghostbusters and ask for their help because things are so bad. And things are getting way crazier. And eventually it becomes a situation that's way worse than they ever could have imagined. They had no idea how bad this paranormal activity would be, how it's all connected, so on and so on. You have people getting possessed and so on too. Now, what really surprised me about this movie is how fun it can be. And again, I might watch this maybe once every 5 or 10 years. It's not very often that I watch this. I think the last time I saw this was 10 years ago. Because I'm just, again, not a big Ghostbusters guy. I love the special effects, the CGI and stuff they did for this film. I love the practical effects. I think the monsters and ghosts and stuff, especially the librarian ghost, they're fucking creepy, dude. This film manages to mix in some stop-motion animation that sometimes works and a lot of times I don't think works personally. That's just me. Maybe it's because the film hasn't aged completely properly in those particular areas, but even though they haven't aged incredibly well, they still look pretty solid, in my personal opinion. And I like the film. I appreciate it. Again, it's well shot. The camera work is great. The cinematography of it is very nice. I like the 1980s feel. Everything from the soundtrack with the awesome Ghostbusters theme song. How could you ever talk about Ghostbusters and not mention that awesome song in here? It's a blast. It really is a blast for what it is, even if I don't love it. Even if I don't have fun with this the way I do something like Deadpool, which is also kind of a dry humor film, sometimes, not always. Deadpool has more MCU humor, but that's a whole nother discussion. But this film is more dry than most things. It has almost a British dryness to it, you know? And that's so bizarre to me now, looking at that in hindsight, watching it for the first time in 10 years or whatever it's been. I just don't love this, like a lot of people. But Sigourney Weaver is good. It's one of the few performances I really like out of her, and she's actually really, really pretty in the film, and I've never felt that way about Sigourney Weaver, so that was a whole weird thing to experience while watching this. But again, everything that you could want out of this kind of concept, this horror comedy that to me really kicked off horror comedy, aside from something like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein or something along that series, this is one that really stands out. It always has, it always will. It's a lot of people's favorite horror comedy or just comedy in general, and I understand why. But I would never put this on the plane of something like a Back to the Future. You know what I mean? Like, that is the maximum capacity of quality that you could get to for something that's in comedy, in my opinion. But anyway, Ghostbusters is clearly an icon for a reason. It has a lot of great stuff, even down to the logo of this surprised ghost who's getting node, you know, get out of here. Like that, with a little red stop sign, whatever that's called. Yield sign? I don't know what it's called. Who cares? Anyway, so with all of the things that I like about this film, I would say there's not really any flaws that aren't just nitpicks about my perspective of it. Again, like the stop motion thing, or like the dry humor or whatever. Aside from kind of a subjective thing, perspective, whatever, interests, this doesn't really have any flaws to it, to be honest with you. It's a well-made film for what it is, and it's well-written. I think the characters are very well-rounded, and I think all of our lead guys do a great job. I just wish Ernie Hudson got more love in this film. He doesn't get as much love in Ghostbusters 2 like he deserves. I love Ernie Hudson. He's probably my favorite Ghostbuster aside from Bill Murray. So anyway, with all that being said, Ghostbusters, the original 1984 film, what do I have to say about this film? It's a classic for a lot of reasons. Even if I don't love it like a lot of people, I do recommend it if you haven't seen it before. I don't know if I'd recommend the series, because like I said, from Ghostbusters 2 onward, it becomes more child-friendly. Ghostbusters 2 still has some eeriness to it, some creep factor to it, but it is way more silly than this first movie was. Despite this being goofy, that's way goofier. That is in the cartoonish realm, because I think between the 5-year release of this and Ghostbusters 2, there was a lot of cartoon properties that came out to celebrate Ghostbusters and to try to make it into a children's property with toys and everything. So by the time Ghostbusters 2 came out, it was so child-friendly in a weird way. To me, it never really took off. And I've only seen, like I said, Ghostbusters 2 a couple of times in my life because to me it's a lesser movie than this. But I think a lot of people feel that way. So I would recommend this movie to most people, not so much the others, and I'll get to that as I talk more about these films, and eventually we'll get to the end of these, and I'll talk about Frozen Empire, the new film coming out in March. Like I said, there's a lot of releases coming out in March. We have a new Godzilla film, we have the new Dune movie, which I haven't even seen the remake that Villeneuve or whatever his name is made, and then we have Ghostbusters, which is crazy. Anyway, Ghostbusters 1 from 1984, if I had to rate this film on a 5-star basis, I think I'd give it like a 4 out of 5 stars, but it's kind of a weak 4. I appreciate it for how well made it is, but I don't love it at all. Like, I just really don't have that appreciation for it that a lot of people had back in the 80s. Did you grow up on this if you were a 90s kid like me? Did you love it as much as most people seem to that were in the 80s when this came out? I'd love to hear everything people have to say down in the comments section about Ghostbusters. My opinions about the series may surprise you quite a bit, but I'm sorry. I have some weird opinions sometimes. Anyway, have you seen it? What do you think about it? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this movie and the rest of the franchise down below. And again, I will be reviewing the other films from this point on. I have seen them all at this point, except for Frozen Empire, the new one, and I want to talk about them. So anyway, thank you for watching, guys. God bless you all. Let me know everything you think down below. And again, kind of a mediocre 4 out of 5 stars for me, like a weak 4 out of 5, like I said. It's just not for me. I've never been a hardcore obsessor of this like a lot of people, despite it being well made. It's kind of like an Evil Dead 2 situation. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. God bless you all. Catch you later, and goodbye.